Ryan hoped they had more than 40 seconds. Ryan considered the limitations of yellow genomes, which altered reality by turning imaginary concepts into physical laws. He reasoned that Pluto's power, while deadly, was countered by the violet genome's domain over the purple world and his own ability to stop time selectively. Pluto did not seem to control the calamity she caused, or she would have destroyed their car already. Ryan identified Pluto as their final destination. Felix asked for clarification as Night Terror closed the gap between their vehicles and the vamp prepared another volley. Ryan dodged a deer on the highway, noting the irony, and referenced a movie where heroes survive but perish in the sequel. Atom Cat's explosions disrupted the vamp's aim and forced Pluto to slow down to avoid damage, but the highway began to tremble under structural damage exacerbated by Cruella's ability. A pillar supporting the highway collapsed, creating a large gap between the two halves of the road. Ryan told everyone to hold tight as the Pandamobile approached the gap, now an unstoppable missile. He calculated the angle by freezing time briefly, then made the jump as time resumed. The vehicle soared gracefully over the gap and landed with a loud thump, straining the wheels. Night Terror stopped his motorcycle inches from the gap, while the Lamborghini accelerated, made the jump, and continued the chase. Night Terror turned back to seek another route. Despite Ryan's superior driving skills, Pluto's Lamborghini began closing the distance rapidly. Ryan felt a chill and his heartbeat quickened as Pluto's power focused on him. He urged Felix to hit Pluto, but Felix panicked, struggling to find more projectiles and running out of darts. Ryan instructed Kitten to hold the steering wheel. Felix grabbed it hastily as Ryan kicked open his door, retrieved a revolver from under his suit, and rose halfway out of the car. Ryan shouted to Pluto, freezing time and aiming at the Lamborghini, declaring his immortality. He fired multiple shots at the windshield, engine, and wheels, but almost all the bullets bounced off. Ryan raged as time resumed, taking back the steering wheel and closing his door. He cursed the bulletproof car of their enemy while they were stuck with a Fiat Panda. The Pandamobile's hood emitted smoke and flames, signaling the engine was under attack. Felix shouted for Ryan to leave him and run, grabbing the doll hanging from the rear view mirror to throw like a grenade. He insisted the enemies were only after him. Ryan refused, demanding time to think as the sun set and night took over, the enemy car closing to within 100 meters. Suddenly, Ryan froze at the voice behind him. Without looking back, he checked the rear view mirror and saw Bloodstream sitting in the back seat, a monstrous human-shaped blob of blood from his memories. Ryan whispered in fear that Bloodstream was dead, but the apparition accused Ryan of killing him, lunging at his throat and choking him as in childhood. Ryan lost breath and control of the wheel. Felix panicked, abandoning his plan to throw the doll and trying to regain control, but without brakes, an intact engine, or a steady driver, the Pandamobile veered off course, crashed through the guardrail, and fell from the highway. Felix screamed as the car prepared to crash into the woods below. Ryan instinctively activated his time stop. Bloodstream's grip vanished along with his ghost, though the pain in Ryan's neck remained. The Pandamobile froze a few meters above the ground, halting the fall. Ryan kicked open the door, grabbed the time-frozen Felix, and leapt out, both rolling on the soft grass a few meters from the vehicle. When time resumed, the Pandamobile hit the ground and exploded in a fiery blast, smoke and fumes illuminating the darkness. Bloodstream was nowhere to be found, as if he had never been there at all. Ryan croaked that it was an illusion, a night terror causing psychosomatic wounds. Felix pointed to the highway above, where the Lamborghini had stopped and Pluto and Sparrow stepped out to inspect the wreckage. Ryan and Felix immediately fled into the woods. Sparrow fired a crimson beam that set a tree on fire, but the two managed to escape into the darkness. The hunt had only just begun. The Pandamobile was exactly as Ryan had expected, a Dynamis-made copy of a second-generation Fiat covered in white and black fur to mimic an actual animal, complete with a doll dangling from the rear view mirror. It was comfortable and cute, but unimaginative, a product of a lazy corporation. Ryan would never have touched it if they hadn't given him the keys beforehand, and even then, holding the steering wheel felt wrong. Ryan confessed to feeling like he was cheating on his Plymouth Fury with a dirty whore, filled with regrets and anguish. Atom Cat told him to shut up and keep driving, repeatedly checking the rear view mirror for any sign of Pluto. They had reached the city's suburbs and were approaching an overpass, great concrete pillars lifting the highway above shacks inhabited by the city's poorest residents. Dynamis had maintained the highway but ignored what lay beneath. The sun was setting, and no sign of the Augusti appeared yet. If all went well, they would reach the rendezvous point with Len near the Amalfi Coast by nightfall. Ryan reminded Felix that he had prevented them from taking a better car. Felix sighed, saying Augustus would target anyone who helped him. Ryan teased Felix about whether he had fallen for him yet, just as his phone started ringing. It was Lucky Girl. Atom Cat grumbled that Ryan shouldn't be calling while driving. Ryan answered the phone, greeting Fortuna warmly. She sounded confused to be speaking to Ryan instead of Felix, claiming her power was never wrong. Ryan told her Felix was right next to him, begging for protection. Fortuna praised Ryan for anticipating her wishes and demanded to speak to Felix. Felix refused, and Ryan dangled the phone in front of him. Suddenly, the traffic light above them separated from its pole and threatened to fall on the Pandamobile. Ryan activated his power, looked out the window, and skillfully drove out of the way as time resumed. The traffic light crashed and shattered. Ryan joked about public service before Adam Cat shoved the phone against Felix's ear. Felix protested until he heard Fortuna berating him. He confirmed he was alive but refused to disclose his location. Ryan noticed a car coming from his right and had to swerve at the last second to avoid a collision. He complained about the crazy drivers in New Rome but felt relieved he could stop time. Adam Cat tensed and said it wasn't an accident, asking Ryan if he could feel the cold. Ryan looked in the rear view mirror but saw nothing unusual and asked about the range of the threat. Adam Cat explained that if he could feel it, then she could track them. Ryan cursed and told Fortuna he would call back, then hung up and put the phone away, turning toward the highway. The Pandamobile climbed onto the giant highway, leaving New Rome behind. The elevated road overlooked lush countryside, woods, country roads, and isolated houses. Besides a few diesel vehicles, the road was theirs. Felix confirmed that Pluto could track people with her power by marking a target and activating a curse that created a sympathetic link, growing stronger the closer she was. Ryan realized that if Pluto's range extended so far they couldn't see her, and if she could sense her targets, they had no chance to surprise her. Felix looked through his window and gasped in surprise, pointing out a familiar black Lamborghini moving on the road below the highway, between the woods, a few hundred meters from the Pandamobile. Ryan froze time and looked through Adam Cat's window to confirm the sighting. Two people escorted the Lamborghini on a motorcycle, a gaunt, masculine figure dressed entirely in a black bodysuit, and a woman in a red leather jacket with crimson hair flowing out of her biker helmet, carrying a submachine gun. The road they followed led back to the highway at a junction roughly a kilometer ahead. Ryan warned Kitten to put on her belt as time resumed, and the courier smashed the accelerator, making the Pandamobile speed up in hopes of reaching the junction before their pursuers. Felix identified the pursuers as the Vamp and Night Terror and questioned if the Pandamobile could go faster than a Lamborghini. Ryan explained that Kitten drove a Lamborghini Gallardo, which could go twice as fast as the Pandamobile's Dynami's Abomination, which maxed out at 150 kilometers per hour. Felix mentioned Night Terror's power activated in darkness, and Ryan noted that some Killer 7 members had fitting names. Felix described the Vamp's power as using pheromones to manipulate and kill on touch, lamenting that they sent the one genome he couldn't destroy through direct contact. Adam Cat noticed their pursuers accelerating, indicating awareness of being spotted. The Pandamobile passed the road junction first and reached its maximum speed, but Ryan saw the black Lamborghini and its escort closing in through the rear view mirror. Pluto had engaged Ryan in a highway car chase, unaware of who she was dealing with. Felix threw an explosive dart at the pursuers, which detonated catastrophically in front of the Lamborghini, blowing dust everywhere. A nearby truck suddenly veered off course, one of its wheels breaking down. Ryan, using his skill and selective time, dodged the falling vehicle and narrowly avoided a pickup suffering the same problem. Ryan checked the Pandamobile and realized the brakes no longer worked. Felix warned the situation would worsen the closer Pluto got. Pluto's Lamborghini emerged from the dust unharmed, and the Vamp raised her submachine gun at the Pandamobile. Ryan and Felix ducked as bullets shattered the rear windows and impacted the windshield. One glass shard veered toward Adam Cat's throat, but he stopped time, grabbed the shard, and threw it out of the car once time resumed. Ryan asked if Pluto had any weaknesses. Felix said she could only target one person at a time and threw another dart at Night Terror's motorcycle, which dodged it but was prevented from aiming. From the glass shard incident, Ryan deduced Pluto was targeting Adam Cat, which could have been an advantage if the two heroes weren't in the same car. Adam Cat explained that Pluto's power required physical proximity to grow stronger, so increasing distance would reduce its potency and possibly restore the brakes. Ryan asked what would happen if Pluto got within 10 meters, and Felix grimly replied, heart attack. Ryan hoped it would take more than 40 seconds. He reasoned that all yellow genomes had strange limits, warping reality by turning imaginary concepts into physical laws. Pluto's power made death inevitable for her victims, but the purple world belonged to the violet genome. Like how Ryan ignored Fortuna's luck, he could break Pluto's hold on causality by stopping time selectively. He doubted Pluto controlled the calamity she caused, or she would have destroyed their car already. She was Fortuna's evil counterpart. Ryan declared she was their final destination. Felix asked paused for clarification as Night Terror closed the gap and the vamp prepared another volley. Ryan veered off to dodge a deer on the highway, making a dark joke about heroes living at the end of movies but dying in sequels. Atom Cat's explosions prevented the vamp from aiming her submachine gun and forced Pluto's car to slow down to avoid the blasts, but the highway trembled under the structural damage amplified by Cruella's ability. Eventually, a pillar holding the highway 24 meters above ground collapsed in front of the Pandamobile, causing cars to fall and creating a large hole between the two halves of the road, one slightly higher than the other. Ryan told everyone to hold tight as the Pandamobile became an unstoppable missile. He calculated the angle with a brief time freeze, then made the jump when time resumed. The Pandamobile soared gracefully through the air, crossed the hole at full speed, and Ryan adjusted its movements for a perfect landing, striking a confident pose. The vehicle landed with a loud thump, Felix nearly jumping from his seat as the wheels strained from the impact. Night Terror abruptly stopped his motorcycle inches from the hole, while the vamp expressed frustration. Pluto's Lamborghini, however, kept accelerating, soared through the air, and made the jump. Night Terror turned his bike around to find another route. Despite Ryan's experience, Pluto's car, capable of twice the Pandamobile's speed, began closing the distance from 300 meters to 200. A chill ran down Ryan's spine as if death itself crawled along his back. His heartbeat quickened, breathing shortened, and his vision blurred at the edges. His fingers twitched, and he heard his own heartbeat pounding in his skull. Pluto's evil gaze was fixed on him. Pluto snarled at Felix to hit the Pandamobile, his power making him unnaturally anxious. Felix panicked, unbuckled his seatbelt, and struggled to find another projectile, warning he was running out of darts. Ryan told Felix to hold the steering wheel. Felix hastily grabbed it as Ryan kicked open his door, drew a revolver from under his suit, and half rose out of the car while his cat fought to keep the Pandamobile on track. Ryan shouted at Pluto, freezing time as he aimed at the Lamborghini and declared his immortality. He fired multiple shots, 2 at the windshield, 1 at the engine, and 2 at the wheels, but almost all bounced off. When time resumed, Ryan took back the wheel and slammed his door shut, raging about the bulletproof car compared to their Fiat Panda. Smoke and flames began rising from the Pandamobile's hood as the engine took damage. Felix shouted for Ryan to leave him and run, grabbing the doll hanging from the rearview mirror to throw as a last-ditch weapon, claiming the enemy was only after him. Ryan refused, insisting he needed to think despite his worsening condition and the enemy car closing to 100 meters. Then Ryan froze in terror as he heard the voice of Cesare behind him. He dared not look back but caught the monstrous, human-shaped blob of blood in the rearview mirror. Cesare lunged at Ryan's throat, choking him like in their childhood, accusing Ryan of killing him, his own father. Felix panicked, abandoning his plan to throw the doll to regain control of the car. But without brakes, a functioning engine, or a skilled driver, the Pandamobile veered off course, crashed through the guardrail, and fell from the highway. Felix screamed as the car plunged toward the woods below. Ryan activated his time-stop, instinctively freezing the fall just meters above the ground. Bloodstream's grip vanished along with his ghost, though the pain in Ryan's neck remained. Ryan kicked open the door and grabbed the frozen Felix. They both leapt out, rolling onto the soft grass a few meters away. When time resumed, the Pandamobile crashed and exploded in a fiery detonation, smoke and fumes illuminating the darkness. Bloodstream was nowhere to be found, an illusion. Ryan croaked that it was an illusion capable of causing harm, possibly psychosomatic wounds, and called out to Night Terror. Felix pointed to the highway above, warning there was no time as Pluto and Sparrow stepped out of the Lamborghini to inspect the wreckage. Ryan and Felix immediately fled into the woods. Sparrow unleashed a crimson beam from her vantage point, setting a tree ablaze, but the two escaped into the darkness. The hunt had only just begun. The Pandamobile was exactly as Ryan expected, a Dynamics-made copy of a second-generation Fiat Panda, covered in white and black fur to mimic an actual animal. It was comfortable and cute, with a doll dangling from the rearview mirror, a lazy corporate design with no imagination. If not for being given the keys beforehand, Ryan wouldn't have touched the car. Even holding the steering wheel felt wrong. He muttered that driving it felt like cheating on his long-suffering wife with a dirty whore, filled with regrets and anguish. Atom Cat told him to shut up and keep driving, repeatedly checking the rearview mirror for signs of Pluto as they reached the city's suburbs and approached an overpass. Concrete pillars lifted the highway above New Rome, looming over shacks inhabited by the poorest residents. Dynamics had maintained the highway, but the area below was neglected. The sun was setting, and no sign of the Augusti appeared yet. If all went well, they would reach the rendezvous with Len near the Amalfi Coast by nightfall. Ryan reminded Felix that he had prevented them from taking a better car. Felix sighed, acknowledging that Augustus would target anyone helping him, and apologized for snapping at Ryan, who teased Felix Felix about whether he had fallen for him yet, noting that Felix's sister had despite his efforts. Ryan's phone rang. It was Lucky Girl. Adam Cat gruffly reminded Ryan not to call while driving. Ryan answered, greeting Fortuna warmly, surprised she was confused to have reached him instead of Felix. Fortuna explained her power never aired and she had been trying to call Felix. Ryan told Fortuna Felix was right beside him, begging for protection. Fortuna praised Ryan as the perfect gentleman and demanded Felix's phone. Felix refused, but Ryan dangled the phone in front of him. Suddenly, the traffic light above separated from its pole and threatened to fall on the Pandamobile. Ryan activated his power, looked out the window, and skillfully drove out of the way just before the traffic light crashed and shattered. He muttered about the state of public service before handing the phone to Felix. Felix protested until Fortuna berated him on the other end, confirming he was alive but refusing to reveal his location. Ryan tried to relax but had to swerve to avoid a car coming from the right. He complained about New Rome's reckless drivers, noting at least he could stop time. Adam Cat tensed and said it wasn't an accident, asking if Ryan could feel the cold. Ryan looked in the rearview mirror but saw nothing unusual and asked about the range of the cold. Adam Cat admitted he didn't know, but if he could feel it, their pursuer could track them. Ryan cursed under his breath, told Fortuna he'd call back, and ended the call. The courier warned Ryan not to hang up on him again before ending the call with Fortuna, slipping his phone back under his suit and turning toward the highway. The Pandamobile ascended the massive elevated highway, leaving New Rome behind. The urban sprawl gave way to forests, country roads, and scattered houses. Aside from a few diesel vehicles, Ryan had the road mostly to himself. Felix asked if Pluto could really track people with her power, recalling that Pluto hadn't noticed marking Ryan until they met in a previous loop. Felix confirmed that once Pluto marked a target and activated her curse, a sympathetic link formed between them, growing stronger the closer she was. He admitted not knowing the full extent of her ability. If Pluto's range extended beyond sight and she could sense her targets, they had no chance to surprise her. Felix suddenly gasped and pointed out a familiar black Lamborghini moving on the road below the highway, a few hundred meters behind the Pandamobile. Two people on a motorcycle escorted it, a gaunt figure in a black bodysuit and a woman in a red leather jacket with flowing crimson hair, carrying a submachine gun. The road they followed led back to the highway roughly a kilometer ahead. Ryan warned Felix to put on his belt as time resumed, then slammed the accelerator. The Pandamobile sped up, aiming to reach maximum speed and beat their pursuers to the junction. Felix identified the pursuers as the Vamp and Night Terror. He asked if the Pandamobile could outrun the Lamborghini, but Ryan noted that Pluto's Lamborghini Gallardo could go twice as fast as their vehicle, which maxed out at 150 kilometers per hour. Felix recognized Night Terror as the blue genome of the Killer 7, whose power activated in darkness, while the Vamp used pheromones to manipulate or kill on touch. Adam Cat, watching through the window, ground his teeth as he saw their pursuers accelerating, aware they had been noticed. The Pandamobile passed the junction first and reached its top speed, but the black Lamborghini and its escort remained in pursuit. Pluto had engaged Ryan in a highway chase, unaware of who she was dealing with. Felix encouraged Ryan to go after them. Felix opened his window and expertly threw an explosive dart at the pursuers. Night Terror's motorcycle dodged it, but the dart detonated just ahead of the Lamborghini, creating a dust cloud. A nearby truck suddenly swerved off course, one wheel breaking down. Ryan used his time, stop skills, and driving experience to dodge the falling vehicle. He mocked the truck for lack of reincarnations, but immediately had to avoid a pickup with the same issue. Ryan checked the Pandamobile and discovered the brakes had failed. Felix warned the situation would worsen the closer Pluto got. Pluto's Lamborghini emerged from the dust cloud unharmed. The Vamp raised her submachine gun and fired at the Pandamobile. Ryan and Felix ducked as bullets shattered the rear windows and struck the windshield. A glass shard aimed at Adam Cat's throat, but Ryan stopped time, grabbed the shard, and threw it out before resuming time. Ryan asked if Pluto had any weaknesses. Felix said she could only target one person at a time and threw another dart at Night Terror's motorcycle, which dodged it but was prevented from aiming. Since the glass shard targeted Adam Cat, Ryan guessed Pluto directed her power at him, though they were in the same car. Adam Cat explained that Pluto needed physical proximity to strengthen her effect, so putting distance between them might restore the brake's function. Ryan asked what would happen if Pluto got within 10 meters. Felix grimaced and replied, "Heart attack." Ryan hoped they had more than 40 seconds. He reasoned that Pluto's power must have limits, as all yellow genomes warped reality by transforming concepts into physical laws, but the purple world belonged to the violet genome. Like Fortuna's luck, Ryan could break Pluto's hold on causality by stopping time selectively. He doubted Pluto controlled the calamities she caused, otherwise, their car would have exploded already. Ryan Ryan identified Pluto as Fortuna's evil counterpart and their final destination. Felix asked for clarification, but Ryan referenced a movie where heroes survive at the end, though the sequel ended badly. Atom Cat's explosions prevented the vamp from aiming and forced Pluto's car to slow down, but the highway began to tremble from structural damage amplified by Cruella's ability. One of the pillars supporting the highway collapsed ahead of the Pandamobile, causing cars to fall and leaving a large gap between two sections of road at different heights. Ryan told everyone to hold tight as the Pandamobile became an unstoppable missile. The side of the road ahead was slightly higher, offering a chance to jump. Atom Cat panicked but quickly fastened his belt. Ryan said he couldn't slow down even if he wanted to, froze time to calculate the angle, then made the jump as time resumed. The Pandamobile soared through the air, crossing the gap at full speed as Ryan adjusted its trajectory to ensure a perfect landing. He struck a confident pose, embodying the bravery required for such a jump. The vehicle landed with a loud thump, causing Felix to nearly jump from his seat. Ryan heard the wheels straining from the impact, fearing they might soon fail. Night Terror abruptly stopped his motorcycle just inches from the gap, abandoning the jump and frustrating the vamp. Meanwhile, the Lamborghini Gallardo accelerated, making the jump successfully while Night Terror turned to find another route. Despite Ryan's experience, Pluto's Lamborghini, capable of twice his speed, began closing the distance rapidly, from 300 meters to 200. A chill ran down Ryan's spine as the enemy car drew closer, his heartbeat quickening and vision blurring at the edges. Pluto commanded Felix to attack the Pandamobile, his power making Felix anxious. Felix struggled to find a new projectile, running out of darts. Ryan instructed Felix to hold the steering wheel. He kicked his door open, grabbed a revolver from under his suit, and rose halfway out of the car as Felix struggled to keep the vehicle on track. Ryan shouted at Pluto, freezing time and aiming at the Lamborghini. He fired multiple shots, 2 at the windshield, 1 at the engine, and 2 at the wheels, but almost all bounced off. As time resumed, Ryan took back the steering wheel, closing his door in frustration. The Pandamobile's hood emitted smoke and flames, the engine under attack. Felix found the doll hanging from the rear view mirror, preparing to throw it as a last-ditch projectile. He shouted that the attackers were after him alone and urged Ryan to run. Ryan refused, urging himself to think despite the enemy car closing to within 100 meters. Suddenly, a voice called his name from behind. Ryan froze, recognizing the voice without daring to look back. Through the rear view mirror, he saw Bloodstream, a monstrous human-shaped blob of blood, exactly as in his memory. Ryan whispered in fear that Bloodstream was dead. Bloodstream lunged for Ryan's throat, choking him as he had in childhood. Ryan lost breath and control of the steering wheel. Felix panicked, abandoning his plan to throw the doll and tried to regain control, but without brakes, a functioning engine, or a steady driver, the Pandamobile veered off course. The car crashed through the guardrail and fell from the highway. Felix screamed as the vehicle plummeted toward the woods below. Ryan activated his time, stop instinctively, halting the fall a few meters above the ground. Bloodstream's hold vanished along with the apparition, though pain lingered in Ryan's neck. Ryan kicked open the door, grabbed the frozen Felix, and leapt out, both rolling safely onto the grass below. When time resumed, the Pandamobile crashed and exploded in a fiery detonation, smoke and flames illuminating the darkness. Bloodstream was gone, never having been there at all. Ryan croaked that it had been an illusion, possibly psychosomatic wounds. Felix pointed toward the highway above, where the Lamborghini had stopped and Pluto and Sparrow stepped out to inspect the wreckage. Ryan and Felix fled into the woods as Sparrow fired a crimson beam that set a tree ablaze, but they escaped into the darkness. The hunt had only just begun. The Pandamobile was a Dynamics-made copy of a second-generation Fiat, covered in white and black fur to mimic an actual animal. It was comfortable and cute, with a doll dangling from the rear view mirror, a lazy corporate design lacking imagination. Ryan had initially tried to borrow a better sports car, but Kitten insisted on using the Pandamobile. Even touching its steering wheel felt wrong to him. He joked about feeling like he was cheating on his Plymouth Fury, filled with regrets. Atom Cat urged him to keep driving, repeatedly checking the rear view mirror for signs of Pluto. They had reached the city's suburbs, approaching an overpass. Great concrete pillars lifted the highway above the road like a bridge, looming over shacks inhabited by the city's poorest residents. Although Dynamics maintained the highway, they neglected the area below. The sun was setting, and no sign of the Augusti appeared yet. If all went well, they would reach the rendezvous point with Len near the Amalfi Coast by nightfall. Ryan reminded Atom Cat that he had prevented them from taking a better car, and Kitten retorted that it was now Ryan's life on the line as well, since Augustus targeted anyone helping him. Felix apologized for snapping but appreciated the help. Ryan teased Felix about whether he had fallen for him yet, just as his phone rang. rang. It was Lucky Girl. Adam Cat gruffly warned against calling while driving. Ryan answered, greeting Fortuna warmly. Fortuna expressed confusion, saying she had been trying to call Felix, as her power was never wrong. Ryan explained Felix was right beside him, begging for protection. Fortuna praised Ryan for anticipating her wishes and asked him to hand the phone to Felix. Felix refused, and Ryan dangled the phone in front of him. Suddenly, the traffic light above them detached from its pole, threatening to fall on the Pandamobile. Ryan activated his power, looked out the window, and skillfully drove the Pandamobile out of the way as time resumed. The traffic light crashed to the ground and shattered. The violet genome muttered about public service before pressing the phone to Felix's ear. Felix protested, but heard Fortuna berating him on the other end. He confirmed he was alive, but refused to reveal his location. Ryan noticed a car coming from the right and had to veer sharply to avoid a collision. He complained about the reckless driving in New Rome, noting the traffic had nearly killed him twice on his first day. Adam Cat tensed and pushed the phone away, warning Ryan it wasn't an accident and asking if he could feel the cold. Ryan looked in the rearview mirror but saw nothing unusual and asked how far the cold's range extended. Felix admitted he didn't know, but if he could feel it, then Pluto could track them. Ryan recovered the phone, told Fortuna he would call back, and hung up as she warned him not to hang up again. He took a turn toward the highway. The Pandamobile climbed onto the giant highway, leaving New Rome behind. The urban landscape gave way to woods, country roads, and isolated houses. Aside from a few diesel vehicles, Ryan had the road mostly to himself. Ryan asked Felix if Pluto could really track people with her power, recalling that Pluto hadn't noticed marking him until they met in a previous loop. Felix confirmed Pluto created a sympathetic link with her targets once marked, and the closer she was, the stronger her power. Felix then spotted something through the window and gasped. Ryan froze time and looked through Adam Cat's window, seeing a familiar black Lamborghini moving on the road below, about a few hundred meters from the Pandamobile. Two people on a motorcycle escorted the car, a gaunt man in a black bodysuit and a woman in a red leather jacket with crimson hair, carrying a submachine gun. The road they followed led back to the highway about a kilometer ahead. Ryan warned Felix to put on his belt, then resumed time and accelerated rapidly, aiming to reach maximum speed and beat their pursuers to the junction. Felix identified their pursuers as the Vamp and Night Terror. He questioned whether the Pandamobile could go faster than a Lamborghini. Ryan explained the Lamborghini Gallardo Pluto drove was faster, with the Pandamobile topping out at 150 kilometers per hour. Felix recognized Night Terror as the blue genome of the Killer 7, who activated his power in darkness. Ryan noted the fitting name and asked about the Vamp. Felix explained she used pheromones to manipulate and kill on touch, lamenting that she was the one genome he couldn't destroy by direct contact. Felix noticed the pursuers accelerating, aware they knew they had been spotted. The Pandamobile passed the junction first and reached maximum speed, but Ryan saw the black Lamborghini and motorcycle still in pursuit. Pluto had engaged him in a highway car chase, unaware of who she was dealing with. Felix threw an explosive dart at their pursuers with great skill. Night Terror's motorcycle dodged it, but the dart exploded in front of the Lamborghini, kicking up dust. A nearby truck suddenly veered off course, one wheel breaking down. Ryan used his honed skills and time, stopped selectively to dodge the falling vehicle. He mocked the truck, then had to avoid a pickup suffering a similar problem. Ryan checked the Pandamobile systems and realized the brakes no longer worked. Felix warned the situation would worsen as Pluto got closer. Pluto's Lamborghini emerged unharmed from the dust, and the Vamp raised her submachine gun, firing a volley that shattered the Pandamobile's rear windows and windshield. One glass shard veered toward Adam Cat's throat, but Ryan stopped time, grabbed the shard, and threw it out once time resumed. Ryan asked if Pluto had any weaknesses. Felix said she could only target one person at a time and threw another dart at Night Terror's motorcycle, which dodged it but was prevented from aiming. Ryan inferred Pluto had directed her power at Adam Cat. Adam Cat explained that Pluto's power required physical proximity to strengthen, so increasing distance might restore their brakes. Ryan asked what would happen if Pluto got within 10 meters. Felix grimaced and said it would cause a heart attack. Ryan hoped it would take longer than 40 seconds. He reflected that all yellow genomes had strange limits, warping reality by turning imaginary concepts into physical laws. Pluto's power made death inevitable, but the purple world belonged to the violet genome, who could break Pluto's control by stopping time selectively. Ryan doubted Pluto controlled the calamities she caused, otherwise, their car would have exploded already. Ryan declared Pluto was their final destination. Felix asked for clarification as Night Terror closed the gap and the Vamp prepared a second volley. Ryan veered to avoid a deer on the highway and joked that heroes lived at the end of the story, though he thought better of mentioning the sequel's fate. Adam Cat's explosion explosions prevented the vamp from aiming her submachine gun and forced Pluto's car to slow down to avoid being blown up, but Ryan already saw the consequences. The highway trembled, its structural damage worsened by Cruella's ability. Ahead of the Pandamobile, one of the pillars supporting the highway 24 meters above the ground collapsed, causing cars to plummet into the abyss. A large gap formed between the two halves of the road, one slightly higher than the other. Ryan warned Felix to hold tight as the Pandamobile became an unstoppable missile, aiming to jump the gap where the side of the road was higher. Adam Cat panicked, quickly putting on his belt and questioning Ryan's confidence. Ryan froze time briefly to calculate the right angle, then resumed it and made the jump. The Pandamobile soared through the air with grace, Ryan adjusting its movements for a perfect landing and striking a confident pose. The vehicle landed with a loud thump, Felix nearly jumping in his seat as the wheels strained under the impact. Night Terror abruptly stopped his motorcycle inches from the hole, refusing to jump, much to the vamp's frustration. The Lamborghini Gallardo, however, accelerated, soaring through the air and making the jump while Night Terror turned his bike around to find another route. Despite Ryan's experience, Pluto's car, capable of twice his speed, began gaining ground rapidly, closing the distance from 300 meters to 200. A chill ran down Ryan's spine as Pluto's evil eye fixed on him. Pluto's power made Felix unnaturally anxious, and he urged Felix to hit Pluto's car. Felix panicked, removing his seatbelt and struggling to find a projectile as his darts ran out. Ryan told Felix to hold the wheel, kicked his door open, grabbed a revolver from under his suit, and half rose out of the car. He froze time again and aimed at the Lamborghini, declaring himself immortal before firing multiple shots at the windshield, engine, and wheels. Almost all bullets bounced off. Ryan cursed the bulletproof car as the Pandamobile's hood emitted smoke and flames, the calamities targeting the engine. Felix shouted to leave him and run, grabbing a doll from the rear view mirror to throw like a grenade, claiming they were after him alone. Ryan refused and tried to think, his breathing growing shorter as night fell and Pluto's car closed to 100 meters. Suddenly, Ryan froze in fear at a voice behind him. He looked in the rear view mirror and saw Bloodstream, a monstrous human-shaped blob of blood resembling his childhood nightmare. Bloodstream lunged for Ryan's throat, choking him while accusing Ryan of killing him, his own father. Ryan lost breath and control of the wheel. Felix panicked, abandoning his plan to throw the doll and trying to regain control, but the Pandamobile veered off course without brakes, an intact engine, or a skilled driver. The car crashed through the guardrail and fell from the highway. Felix screamed as the Pandamobile plunged toward the woods below. Ryan activated his time stop instinctively. Bloodstream's hold vanished with his ghost, though the pain remained. The Pandamobile froze a few meters above the ground, interrupting the fall. Ryan kicked the car door open, grabbed the frozen Felix, and leapt out with him, both rolling onto the soft grass meters away. When time resumed, the Pandamobile hit the ground and exploded in a fiery blast, smoke and fumes illuminating the darkness. Bloodstream was gone, an illusion that had harmed Ryan psychosomatically. Felix pointed toward the highway above where the Lamborghini had stopped. Pluto and Sparrow stepped out to inspect the wreckage. Ryan and Felix fled into the woods as Sparrow unleashed a crimson beam, setting a tree on fire, but the two managed to escape into the darkness. The hunt had only just begun. Ryan recalled his experience with slasher movies from Friday the 13th to Candyman and his roles as relentless Terminator or pursued target. Night Terror was Freddy Krueger, Pluto was Death from Final Destination, the Vamp a Deadly Trap, and Sparrow defied categorization, perhaps the final girl. Ryan and Adam Cat escaped through the woods, moving far enough that Sparrow's lasers could no longer reach them. They followed a hiking path down a wooded valley surrounded by lush ferns, trees, orchids, and cascading water. Ryan recognized the Valle del Ferrier, a pre-war natural reserve. Despite the distance, Ryan sensed Pluto's power active on him. His heartbeat raced, fingers twitched, and he nearly tripped on a rock. Pluto would not relent. Ryan checked his phone, trying to contact the Soviet Supreme Shorty, but found his signal jammed. Adam Cat suggested cutting the phone off to avoid tracking by Vulcan's tech. Ryan agreed, considering it would also spare him Lucky Girl's messages. He asked Adam Cat how far Night Pajama's range extended. In the forest near the pre-war natural reserve, Adam Cat examined Ryan's neck, noting red marks where the bloodstream hallucination had choked him. He asked if Ryan was okay, admitting he had been scared when Ryan had freaked out like a man possessed. Ryan acknowledged Adam Cat's concern but warned that Night Pajama would suffer the Luigi treatment after putting him through such a scare. He instructed Adam Cat to continue south while he went east. Adam Cat questioned if Ryan wanted them to split, recalling that was a bad idea in slasher movies, but Ryan insisted that Cruella could only target one person at a time and was focusing on him. He planned to lead her into a trap, saying that if Adam Cat escaped, they had won. Ryan also refused refused to risk the Killer 7 tracking them to the rendezvous point, emphasizing that risking his own life was one thing, but endangering Len's was another. Felix protested immediately, refusing to leave Ryan to die. Ryan told him to trust him, grabbing a revolver in each hand and explaining he did better without teams. When Felix hesitated, Ryan threatened to shoot him too, prompting Felix to reluctantly agree, warning Ryan not to die for him. Ryan joked that Len would nag him in the afterlife if he did, then told Felix to go. Adam Cat followed the hiking trail south, while Ryan moved east. As Ryan walked through the woods, sensing Pluto's invisible pressure growing stronger, he passed mossy ruins of houses and mills, eventually following a path alongside a tumbling river. He reached a wide area bordered by woods on one side and a small waterfall on the other, with a river flowing over whetstone slabs that allowed crossing. Leaves rustled as shadows approached, and Ryan raised his guns as multiple figures surrounded him, their forms unclear in the darkness. A sweet, delicious perfume filled the air, and an invisible voice urged him to relax. Slowly, a figure emerged from the bushes, a stunning redhead with a curvaceous body, perfect skin, and emerald eyes. Her red jacket promised untold pleasure. Ryan immediately wanted to drop everything and give her the full Romano special. The redhead smiled warmly, showing empty hands, and told him he was safe, sympathizing about how scared he must have been alone in the woods. Ryan's pop culture infested subconscious called her an angel, the most beautiful creature in the universe. She offered to be his angel if he threw away his weapons and promised to show him heaven. Ryan thought of Jasmine but realized the redhead was the perfect waifu, the romance endgame, the true ending. Just as he was about to turn the horror movie into a porno, he remembered that gingers couldn't go to heaven because they didn't have souls. He said this aloud and then shot her. The bullet hit the killer's chest and threw her against a tree but did not draw blood. Ryan realized she wore a bulletproof vest and regretted not aiming for the head. The vamp protested that he had shot her. Ryan raised his guns and fired wildly, accusing her of being a succubus who stole souls represented by her freckles. She looked at him as if he were mad, then fled behind a tree to avoid his shots. She called for Richie, demanding to know how Ryan could resist her pheromones. Ryan replied that having taken many mind-altering substances, he had built a tolerance and had tried stronger aphrodisiacs than her pheromones. The ginger devil warned that a kiss would cause his vitals to fail. At that moment, 5 vicious clowns emerged from the woods, armed with napkins and silver cutlery, surrounding Ryan and announcing that the Monte Carlo was closed. Ryan shot the closest clown, which collapsed into a white substance. These illusions could harm him like real ones but died like the originals, their power limited by his mind. As Ryan fought the clowns, Vamp left her hiding spot and moved stealthily through the bushes, her hands emitting colored smoke, likely lethal pheromones. Ryan briefly stopped time, causing the illusions to vanish instantly, but when time resumed, the clowns returned to life. He taunted Night Terror, claiming he had killed thousands of them and even eaten one. Surrounded by darkness and dead clowns, a new smell filled the air, death and disease. Ryan turned to see Len standing on the whetstone near the waterfall, clothes drenched in blood. Ryan asked if it was Shorty, knowing intellectually it was all in his head. Len opened her mouth, vomited blood, cried crimson tears, and let out an ear-piercing shriek before charging at him with a knife raised. Startled, Ryan was caught off guard as the illusion closed the gap before he could aim. She pushed him against a tree with one arm and tried to stab him with the other. Ryan dropped one gun to catch her hand and keep the blade away, then attempted to aim with the remaining gun even as she shocked him. The illusion spoke in Ryan's voice, telling him he never left Monaco and was still in bed, that this was all a dying dream. The words made Ryan lose focus, and Night Terror's blade struck his thigh, though he managed to divert the attack from his vitals. While pinned to the tree, Vamp emerged from her hiding spot, telling Ryan he should have taken the easy way out and that she would have fucked him first. She moved a pheromone, charged hand toward his neck. Ryan scowled in pain and froze time. Instead of vanishing, the illusion transformed from a twisted version of Len into a masked man in a full black suit. Ryan pushed the paralyzed Night Terror away and shot him twice in the head. When time resumed, the blue genome's corpse crashed against a surprised Vamp, causing her to trip on the whetstones and nearly fall into the nearby waterfall. Ryan, one hand on his thigh wound, raised his gun at her. Vamp pleaded, raising her hands in surrender and filling the air with her scent, promising to make it worth his while if he spared her life. She insisted she would be his, her mind and body urging him to drop his gun and take her now. The courier asked for her name and the name of the fallen Night Terror, pointing his gun at the remains. She forced a smile and gave the names Richard Pinkman and Karen Ricci, promising to kiss his wound if he lowered his weapon. Ryan shot her in the head before she could tempt him further, quipping about his purity as the assassins' bodies were swept down the waterfall. Ryan sighed in pain pain, the knife from Night Terror still embedded in his thigh. He knew he couldn't remove it without risking severe bleeding, even with his enhanced physiology, and needed to find a safe place first. Suddenly, he heard an explosion to the south, indicating Atom Cat was still fighting despite the time traveler's efforts. As his heartbeat pounded and vision blurred, a voice from the darkness impressed him. It was Pluto. Ryan raised his gun but couldn't locate her. She revealed that no one had survived against them so long without backup and identified him as Quicksave, mentioning her niece's request that no harm come to him. Ryan replied that he had been asked to spare Pluto as well, then awkwardly asked if she was single. She answered that she was widowed, prompting Ryan to suggest an arranged marriage to settle their differences, but Pluto declined, noting that Sparrow was pursuing the traitor and that Ryan's plan had changed nothing. Ryan warned her that cats eat sparrows and that she knew nothing about the animal kingdom. Pluto explained she had studied his marker from afar and sensed a connection to a distant universe beyond her curse's reach, suggesting he was only a projection and would reappear even if killed. Ryan admitted that Earth might not survive two of him, relieved that she could not permanently kill him. Pluto advised him to stay out of the conflict, as her brother wanted his godson dead for treachery and cared nothing for Ryan, but Ryan refused, stating she was too poor to afford his rates. In response, Pluto unleashed her full curse, causing the ground to quake and a fierce wind to send razor-sharp leaves and javelin like branches toward him. Ryan froze time, dodged the projectiles, and threw away his gun just before it exploded midair. As time resumed, Pluto taunted him, explaining that he could freeze time briefly to evade her curse but could not escape it entirely and would eventually die. Before Ryan could reply, a noose-shaped branch grabbed his neck from behind, lifting him off the ground and tightening its hold, while Night Terror's knife moved through his flesh as if controlled by an invisible hand. Pluto's curse warped reality itself to kill him. A distant gunshot signaled Pluto's decision to hasten his death. Ryan froze time again, broke free from the branch, removed the knife, and noticed a bullet frozen midair aimed at his head. He considered using the plushie but feared Pluto's power might turn it against him. When time resumed, he nearly fell and his heart pounded uncontrollably. A familiar beep sounded from inside his suit. The A-bomb had been activated. Ryan froze time, extracted the device, and disabled it just before it could detonate, the temporal anomaly nullifying the destructive power. However, without any defense, the ground collapsed beneath him, dragging him into the river and down a small waterfall. He shielded his head before hitting a large stone, but a pile of rubble buried him from the chest down, crushing his legs. From atop the waterfall, a shadow loomed. Pluto raised her gun at him, declaring this was as far as he would go and promising to tell her niece he had done his best. Ryan rasped that he would be back as the water level rose, threatening to drown him. Pluto vowed to kill him as many times as necessary. Suddenly, both turned toward Felix emerging from the woods, weapon in hand and charged with explosive power, the panda doll from the Panda Mobile. Ryan, trapped and struggling to breathe, thought to use the panda's power. Felix snarled, preparing to throw the projectile at Pluto. Ryan felt the death curse's pressure lift as it shifted to target Felix instead. A rain of branches and leaves struck Felix from behind just as he threw the projectile, two wooden spears impaling his right leg and shoulder. Felix collapsed, and the leaves struck the panda doll midair, detonating it safely away from the group. Pluto demonstrated she could use her ability defensively. Cruella appeared calmly, dusting off her dress, noting that Kitten's valiant effort had achieved nothing. Felix, snarling in pain as blood mixed with the waterfall, reported that Sparrow was dead, taken by surprise and blasted. Pluto's scowl deepened as she aimed her gun at Kitten's head, declaring that Kitten had been a loyal soldier and that Felix's niece had been too good for him. Felix coughed blood, the curse intensifying and attacking his vitals. Suddenly, a white furball hopped out of the forest and sat in front of Felix, looking at Pluto with adorable eyes. Pluto's expression shifted from bored professionalism to fear, and no more wooden spears or leaves fell to finish Felix off. Yellow energy flickered around the area, challenging Pluto's power. A young woman with sun, bright hair, an elegant costume, and a gold-plated gun followed the cat through the woods. Fortuna, known as a living good luck charm, appeared. Her power interfered with Pluto's enough to prevent a calamity or heart attack from finishing Felix. A golden cloud surrounded Fortuna like a halo, shielding Felix due to their proximity. Fortuna frowned and rushed to Felix's side, asking if he was all right. Pluto frowned deeply, still pointing her gun at Felix, and reminded Fortuna that she was supposed to stay with Livia. Fortuna explained she had tried to follow, but then noticed Ryan down the waterfall and widened in shock. Ryan tried to wave but was crushed, battered, and bleeding, unable to intervene. Fortuna's horrified gaze shifted between Ryan and Felix as she quickly realized the situation. Pluto said that their parents had authorized the task and that it fell to her specifically so Fortuna wouldn't have to sully her hands. She insisted Felix had betrayed the organization to the carnival and ordered Fortuna to move aside. Fortuna's panic turned to determination as she raised her gun at Pluto's head, stepping between Pluto and Felix, demanding that Pluto get away from her brother and warning she wouldn't hesitate to shoot. Pluto accused the siblings of disgrace and called Fortuna a traitor. The two women exchanged a tense glare. Felix pleaded for Fortuna to stop. Pluto calmly aimed her weapon at Fortuna, while the death curse found a new target, yellow strands surrounding Fortuna's golden cloud like spears ready to strike. Two gunshots echoed through the forest, then silence. Ryan's vision blurred as darkness edged in and his strength left him. He couldn't feel his legs, and his body was cold. Eugene, Henry the cat, teleported silently in front of him, looking down like a guide to the underworld. Above the waterfall, Adam Cat held Fortuna in his arms, blood flowing from her chest. Pluto's corpse fell down the waterfall, a hole in her forehead, as the river pulled her downstream. The curse was cancelled, and the woods returned to normal, but at a cost. Fortuna had made a lucky shot, but even luck couldn't cheat death. Felix shouted, trying to cover Fortuna's wound and stop the bleeding, but Ryan knew it was useless without proper tools and energy. He resolved to save them all next time, knowing only he was cursed with immortality and could bear the burden. As Ryan began to lose consciousness, he noticed a metal shadow moving upstream, a mermaid in power armor crossing the river to rescue him. Len rushed to his side, pushing away debris and reassuring him. A disembodied voice spoke through Eugene, Henry, using Ryan's own voice to say that the rest was up to him. A flash of violet light overwhelmed Ryan, and he lost consciousness. When Ryan opened his eyes, he heard the International playing. He lay beneath a crimson-red ceiling, facing a portrait of Marx and Engels. An intravenous device pumped anesthesia into his right arm beside a steampunk wheelchair made of leather and tin. He realized he had woken in a hidden Soviet lab again. His body felt heavy, breathing was difficult, his chest itched, and he couldn't feel anything below his waist, including his most dangerous weapon. Vamp had died trying to claim it. A TV and a window looking into a dark undersea abyss surrounded him. Little Sarah sat in a chair reading Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, unaware that Ryan had woken. Ryan turned his head toward another bed where Adam Cat lay half, hidden beneath the sheet, watching the ceiling with empty eyes. Bandages covered his torso, and he had an intravenous system of his own. Ryan called out, "Felix, kitten," but received no response.